而家我哋夠人。
We've got a quorum, and now it's 10 to 6. So now let's deal with the motions moved by members in accordance with the Finance Committee procedure, Rule 37A. We have received a total of 40 motions, 37A motions, moved by 3 members. Mr. Lam Kwok Hong, the first 10, and Mr. Albert Chan, 25 thereafter. So I'm speaking in the order they moved their motions, and Mr. Gary Fan, 5 motions. So on the 2 sides, the screen, we have numbered them 1 to 40. So the first one is by Mr. Lam Kwok Hong. Based on Rule 37A of the Finance Committee procedure, he moved this motion. Mr. Lam Kwok Hong, thank you, Chairman. Based on Rule 37A of the Finance Committee procedure, Mr. Lam Kwok Hong, shall I say that we want to vote on it before you speak it? Well, unless you say that you don't want to press this button, shall we vote by a show of hands? Does anyone want to claim division? Of course, we request a division. Okay, claims of division. The division bell will ring for 5 minutes. Mr. Lam Kwok Hong, you can read out your motion. In accordance with Rule 37A of the Finance Committee procedure, I move that as the design and construction cost of the organic waste treatment facility Phase 1 at $1.58982 billion is too high, this committee requests that the administration must revise the cost estimate for this project before proceeding with the design and construction works.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins.
Yes.
Before I declare the voting results, please check your vote. Voting ends. Display of voting results. For 14 against 34. I declare the motion negatived. Mr. Yip Kwok Him, Chairman, I move a motion to cut short the time for the ringing of the division bell from 5 minutes to 1 minute. 1 minute. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong claims the division bell will ring for 5 minutes.
47條，我而家響咗鐘啦。陳偉業議員。
Mr. Albert Chan, that's all right. That's why the chairman has to be here. Thank you for your support.
梁國雄議員，唔係。
Mr. Leung Kwok Hong.
讀你嗰個，你唔講你嗰個第二條應該冇出到。哦，係而家5轉1。梁國雄議員，而家唔係你發言嘅時間，所以。
Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, sorry, the speaker's not coming through.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins. Before I declare the voting results, please check your votes. Mr. Lam Kin Fong. We are now voting on Rule 47 to shorten the ringing of the division bell, the time to be shortened to 1 minute. Display of results: 36 for, 12 against. I declare the motion passed. Now we move on to the second motion moved by Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. We will now ring the bell for 1 minute. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, you can read out your motion. Based on Rule 37A of the Finance Committee procedure, I moved that as the organic waste treatment facility Phase 1 under its present design and construction work has a handling capacity of only 200 tons per day. The efficiency tends to be on the low side. The committee requests that the administration plan afresh the project to raise the daily handling capacity of the facility to a reasonable level before proceeding with the design and construction works of the project. Voting begins. Before I declare the voting results, please check your vote. Voting ends. Display of voting results. 8 for, 35 against. I declare the motion negatived. Now let's move on to motion 3. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. The division bell will ring for 1 minute. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Thank you, Chairman. Based on Rule 37A of the Finance Committee procedure, I moved that as the organic waste treatment facility Phase 1 under its present design construction has a handling capacity of only 210 tons per day. The committee requests that the planning should start afresh and that the administration must consult the main players in the cleaner industry producing food waste and get over 2/3 of the representative support before proceeding with the design and construction works. Chairman, you must support me. I would like to remind you that the chairman doesn't cast a vote. You can wait for me outside.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins. Before I declare the voting results, members please check your vote. Display of voting results. 8 for, 32 against. I declare the motion negatived. Motion number 4. 1 minute. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Based on Rule 37A of the FC procedure, I moved that because the project will increase the flow of works vehicles along the North Lantau Highway and pose pressure on the roads in the vicinity. The committee requests that the administration must carry out traffic pressure tests and assessment before proceeding with the relevant design and construction works. Voting begins. Before I declare the voting results, members please check your vote. Voting ends. Display of voting results. 9 for, 32 against. I declare the motion negatived. Number 5, Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Thank you, Chairman. Based on Rule 37A of Finance Committee procedure, I moved that as the project will see an increase in the flow of works vehicles in the North Lantau Highway and will affect the flow of traffic to the Tongcheng New Town. The committee requests that the administration should consult fully the Tongcheng residents' views, and only after getting the support from majority of the residents should it proceed with the relevant design and construction works. Voting begins. Before I declare the voting results, members please check your vote. Voting ends. Display of voting results. 9 for, 34 against. I declare the motion negatived. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, number 6. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, thank you, Chairman. Based on Rule 37A of the FC procedure, I moved that as the project we see an increase in the flow of works vehicle along the Northern Lantau Highway, and that the traffic going to the airport island will be affected. So the committee requests that the administration should consult fully the relevant stakeholders within the airport island, and only after getting the support of the majority of the stakeholders can it proceed with this design and construction works. Voting begins. Before I declare the voting results, members please check your vote.
Voting is closed, and the result will be displayed. 10 for, 35 against. I declare the motion negatived. 7th motion by Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Sorry, speaker's not coming through. In accordance with Rule 37A, I'd like to move that in view of the fact that Phase 1 of the center will increase the traffic volume of North Lantau Highway, affecting the smooth traffic between Ngongping and Tai O, and we believe that there has to be comprehensive consultation so that there has to be majority support from the residents before they can proceed with the design and build work. Voting begins. Before I declare the result, please verify your votes. Voting is closed, and the result will be displayed. The result is 10 for, 35 against. I declare the motion negatived. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, the 8th motion. In accordance with Rule 37A of the Finance Committee, I move that in view of Phase 1 of the center increasing traffic volume in North Lantau Highway, causing a lot of emission by haul trucks, I like to that the phase 1 project be able to meet Euro 3 or above standards before they can proceed with the design and build project.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins.
在我宣佈表
Before I declare the result, please verify your votes. Voting is closed and the result will be displayed. 10 for, 34 against. I declare the motion negatived. Now is Mr. Leung's 9th motion. Mr. Leung, thank you. In accordance with Rule 37A of the Finance Committee, I move that in view of the fact that Phase 1 of the OWTC will increase the traffic volume by haul trucks on the North Lantau Highway, creating a lot of traffic noise, this committee proposes that the administration must install noise monitor before they can proceed with the design and build work.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins. Before I declare the result, please verify your votes. And voting is closed and the result will be displayed. 9 for, 35 against. I declare the motion negatived. Now is the 10th amendment moved by Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. In accordance with Rule 37A, I move that in view of the fact that Phase 1 of the OWTC will increase the haul truck traffic along Chiang Ma Bridge, creating a lot of emission and noise, this committee demands that the administration must open up the lower deck of the Chiang Ma Bridge as a dedicated route for the haul trucks in order to reduce the pressure on the upper deck of the Chiang Ma Bridge before it can proceed with the design and build work.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins. Before I declare the result, please verify your votes. Voting is now closed and the result will be displayed. 8 for, 35 against. I declare the motion negatived. The 11th motion, Mr. Albert Chan. Mr. Albert Chan, Chairman, I move that in view of the fact that the phase one of the OWTC will only be able to deal with 200 tons of organic waste. It's only 1/10 of the total waste, and that's why we would like the administration to look into the quantity that can be dealt with by the center before it proceed with this, so that the administration will be able to deal with more food waste and organic waste.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins. Before I declare the result, please verify your votes. Voting is now closed, and the result will be displayed. 6-4, 6-4, 35 against. I declare the motion negatived. 12th motion, Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, as Phase 1 of the OWTC's anaerobic digestion system's estimated cost would be as high as $67.9 million. The system is very sophisticated, requiring experienced personnel to install and operate. This committee requires that the administration must get companies from countries where they have experience of installing and operating no less than 10 such systems before they will be allowed to do it.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins and is closed. Before I declare the result, please verify your votes. Voting is closed, and the result will be displayed. 6-4, 35 against. I declare the motion negatived. 13th motion by Mr. Albert Chan. As the administration plans to offer a DOB contract in order to carry out Phase 1 of the OWTC contract, but then the result of this will be that one single consortium will be monopolizing the whole thing, and that will also lower the bargaining power of the administration. Based on the above reason, the administration should consider that for the DBO contract of Phase 1, it should be handed over to 3 companies in order to enhance the administration's bargaining chip.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins. Before I declare the result, please verify your votes. Voting is now closed, and the result will be displayed. 6-4, 36 against. I declare the motion negatived. Now is the 14th motion by Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, as the administration will be spending $100 million on Phase 1 of the OWTC to build a heat recovery, power generation, and supply system of residual energy, and that will have to be designed, built, and operated by an experienced contractor. This committee asked that the administration must ensure that only companies with with experience of operating no less than 5 such facilities will be awarded the contract to run the heat recovery, power generation, and supply of residual power of the center will be allowed to operate such a system. Only then will the contractor have sufficient technology know-how in running the related facilities.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins. Before I declare the result, please verify your votes. Voting is now closed, and the result will be displayed. 6-4, 35 against. I declare the motion negatived. 15th motion, Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, I move that as Phase 1 of the OWTC's operating contract will last for 15 years, that this committee asks the administration to ensure that the companies concerned must have at least 20 years experience in running food waste facilities with anaerobic digestion system in order to ensure that the company will have sufficient experience in running such a center.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins.
在我宣佈表決
Before I declare the result, please verify your votes. Voting is closed and the result will be displayed. The result is 6 for, 36 against. I declare the motion negatived. Now it's the 16th motion, Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, as the administration indicated that the Phase 1 project will be able to have an output of 14 million units of residual power, this council asked the administration to ensure that in the design and build contract, it must specify that the contractor must be able to have an output of 14 million units of residual power before it will be given the contract.
Voting
begins. Before I declare the result, please verify your vote. Voting is closed and the result will be displayed. 6 for, 37 against. I declare the motion negatived. Now is the 17th motion by Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, I move that as the administration plans to spend $20.6 million in engaging a consultant to manage the contract, this committee asks that the administration should ensure that the consultant must have experience of running no less than 2 such facilities before he could be awarded the contract, in order to ensure that the relevant consultant will have the necessary experience in running such a contract. Voting begins. Before I declare the result, please verify your vote. Voting is closed and the result displayed. 6 for, 35 against. I declare the motion negatived. It's the 18th motion. Mr. Albert Chan, I move that as the Phase 1 project will be reducing the quantity of food waste being disposed of, this committee requests that the administration should select companies which do not have a past track record of defaulting in the past before the contract will be awarded to it, in order to ensure that Phase 1 of the project can commission in 2017 in order to deal with commercial food waste and to ensure that the lifespan of landfills can be extended. Voting begins. Before I declare the result, please verify your votes. Voting is now closed and the result displayed. 6 for, 35 against. I declare the motion negatived. It's the 19th motion. Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, I move that as the administration indicates that Phase 1 of the center will be able to deal with 200 tons of food waste, we propose that in awarding the contract, it should be specified that Phase 1 of the center's processing volume has to reach 200 tons a day. And if it fails to do that, then the administration can seek damage from the operator to ensure that the operator will try its best to ensure that the daily output will be able to reach 200 tons a day.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins. Before I declare the result, please verify your votes. Voting is closed and the result displayed. 6-4, 33 against. I declare the motion negative. Now is the 20th motion. Albert Chan. Chairman, I move that as the administration indicates in its paper that the unit cost for processing the waste would be as high as $992 when compared to overseas countries. The unit cost is about 310, so it's about 3 times that of overseas compost plant. And according to the EIA, the administration is using the ventilation composting technology, and that would not be feasible. That's why we would like to ask the administration to suspend the plan and should look into the feasibility of using the ventilation compost technology in processing food waste. And after the feasibility study is completed, it should then decide as to which technology should be adopted to ensure that the money will be well spent.
Voting begins. Before I declare the result, please check your votes. Voting is closed and the results are displayed. 6-4, 33 against. I declare the motion negatived. Motion 21, Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, I move that since the administration said that in the first phase of OWTF there would be the production of 7,000 tons of compost, I ask that in awarding the contract for phase 1, there must be the stipulation that the operator must be able to produce not less than 7,000 tons of compost every year, and if it doesn't meet the target, the administration should be able to stop or terminate the contract for OWTF Phase 1. Voting begins. Before I declare the result, members please check your votes. Voting is closed and the results are displayed. Result is 5-4, 33 against. I declare the motion negatived. Motion number 22, Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, I move that since the administration has said that in the first phase of OWTF, the recurrent expenditure every year will be 72.4 million. I would ask the administration to minimize recurrent expenditure so that it should be reduced to below 60 million in order to reduce the burden from the first phase of OWTF on the administration. Voting begins. Before I declare the voting result, will members please check your votes. Voting is closed and the results are displayed. The result is 4-4, 33 against. I declare the motion negatived. Motion number 23, Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, I move that since the administration has said that the first phase OWTF contract will be as long as 15 years, and it may not be easy for the administration to monitor the operation situation of the OWTF, that this committee would request the administration to shorten the operating contract to 10 years so the administration can more flexibly and more effectively monitor the operating situation of the first phase of WTF.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins. Before I declare the voting result, would members please check your votes? Voting is closed and the results are displayed. 4 for, 32 against. I declare the motion negatived. Motion 24. Mr. Albert Chan? Chairman, I move that since the administration has said that in the first phase of OWTF, the per ton expenditure would be as high as $992, and there will be the reception, pretreatment, anaerobic digestion, biogas cleaning, and also storage, and that cost would be as high as $546. I would ask that when awarding the BOT contract, the administration should seek to reduce the per ton cost from $546 to $400, and that is for reception, pretreatment, anaerobic digestion, biogas cleaning, and also storage, so that this will be able to also reduce the operating cost of the first phase of OWTF. Voting begins. Before I declare the result, please check your votes. Voting is closed and the results are displayed. 3 for, 32 against. I declare the motion negatived. Motion 25, Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, I move that since in the BOT contract for first phase of OWTF, that this will be awarded to a private contractor. However, the administration did not tell what kind of clauses would there be to regulate the profit margin for the operator. I would ask that when awarding the BOT contract, the administration must state that the per year or annual profit should not be more than $5 million for phase 1 OWTF, so that it will ensure that there would not be a hefty profits to be made by the operator from phase 1. Voting begins. Before I declare the result, members, please check your votes. Voting is closed and the results are displayed. 4 for, 33 against. I declare the motion negatived. Motion 26. Mr. Albert Chan? Chairman, I move that since in the first phase of OWTF, the compost system will be costly, and it will be $24.3 million. And whether the compost system can work effectively, there will be a direct impact on the entire WTF. I would ask that in awarding the contract for phase 1, you must stipulate that the contractor must have at least 15 years in designing and operating a compost plant, and also to make sure that the contractor can build a high efficiency compost system. Voting begins. Before I declare the result, will members please check your votes? Voting is closed and the results are displayed. 4 for, 32 against. I declare the motion negatived. Motion 27, Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, I move that since there will be the production of 16,200 tons of C&D waste will be produced by this OWTF, and out of it 12,000 tons will be moved to be public fuel for future use. And so the public are aware that we might have to use a lot of public money in order to process and store the 12,000 tons of waste. And I would ask that in awarding the contract, you have to stipulate that the contractor to be awarded the contract must reduce the C&D waste for phase 1 to below 12,000 tons. And half of it should be used in situ, so the administration doesn't have to spend a lot of money to tackle C&D waste. Voting begins. Before I declare the result, please check your votes. Voting is closed, and the results are displayed. 5 for, 31 against. I declare the motion negatived. Now, motion 28, Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, I move that since the first phase of OWTF would involve more than $1.5 billion and the contract may be awarded to just one contractor, I would ask that in awarding the first phase contract for BOD or DOB, you must stipulate that if there will be serious overspending or delay, the contractor concerned must report the situation to the public so the public will have an immediate understanding of the overspending or delay situation. Voting begins. Before I declare the result, would members please check your votes? Voting is closed and the results are displayed. 5 for, 30 against. I declare the motion negatived. Motion 29, Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, I move that since the administration has said that at the Suho water treatment plant, there will be the building of the boundary and also a 3-meter high solid fencing so that there will be the reduction of the risk to be caused to operating staff at phase 1 of OWTF because of the use of chlorine at Suho water treatment plant. However, many citizens are still worried that should there be a large-scale leak of chlorine, a 3-meter high fencing will not be able to avoid the passing of chlorine to the OWTF. I would ask that this fencing be increased to 5-meter high and there should be vegetation planted around Sihowan so that the chlorine will not be venturing out to the OWTF. Voting begins. Before I declare the result, would members please check their votes? Voting is closed and the results are displayed. The result is 5 for, 32 against. I declare the motion negatived. Motion number 30, Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, I move that since the siting of the OWTF is a water body frequented by Chinese white dolphins, so that and also there will be sewage to be passed into the nearby water body when the OWTF is in operation. I would ask that when you award the contract, you must make sure that there will be effective measures taken in order to avoid the untreated sewage to venture into the water body, to make sure, therefore, that the water quality in the nearby waters will not deteriorate during the operation of the phase 1 of OWTF, so that there will not be a risk caused to the lives of Chinese white dolphins. Voting begins. Before I declare the result, will members please check the votes? Voting is closed and the results are displayed. 5 for, 31 against. I declare the motion negatived. And now we process motion 31, Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, I move that since the administration has said that in the operating period of phase 1, there will be 200 tons of organic waste that cannot be processed, and the administration will only fine the operator. Many citizens are of the view that this will not have a deterrent effect. We ask the administration that when you award the BOD contract or DOB contract for phase 1, you must state that if the operator cannot process 200 tons organic waste every day at the facility, the administration can terminate the contract so as to pressure the operator to, as much as possible, improve or perfect the OWTF.
Voting
begins. Before I declare the result, please check your votes. Voting is closed and the results are displayed. 6 for, 31 against. I declare the motion negatived. Now we process motion 32. Mr. Albert Chan, Chairman, I move that since the administration cannot provide us with the actual clauses for terminating contract for phase 1 OWTF, the committee would ask the administration to shelve the funding request and also publish the clauses for terminating the contract. After the public have understood those clauses, then the funding request can be submitted to this committee for consideration again. Voting begins. Before I declare the result, members, please check your votes. Voting is closed and the results are displayed. 6 for, 30 against. I declare the motion negatived. Now we process motion 33. Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, I move that this committee request the administration to do the following when awarding the contract for DOB, and that is if the operator cannot produce 7,000 tons of compost in the first phase and the first year, there should be determination of the contract. Voting begins. Before I declare the result, members, please check your votes. Voting is closed and the results are displayed. The result is 6 for, 31 against. I declare the motion negatived. Now we process motion 34. Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, I move that this committee request the administration to do this when they award the DOB contract for phase 1, and that is to state that if the operator cannot produce 14,000 units of residual electricity every year, the administration can terminate the contract. Voting begins. Before I declare the result, members, please check your votes. Voting is closed and the results are displayed. The result is 6 for, 32 against. I declare the motion negatived. Motion 35. Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, I move that this committee request the administration to do this while they award the DOB contract, and that is to state that every day the facility, if it exceeds 200 cubic meters of sewage emission every day, the administration can terminate the contract so as to pressurize the contractor to minimize the passing out of sewage.
Voting
begins. Before I declare the result, members please check your votes. Voting is closed and the results are displayed. 6 for, 30 against. I declare the motion negatived. Motion 36, Mr. Gary Fan.
按照財務委員會會議程序第
Based on Rule 37A of the FC procedure, I move that the administration must ask that a local company be engaged in design, build and operate the OWTF Phase 1 to ensure that the public funds can be used to revitalize Hong Kong's local recycling industry. Voting begins. Before I declare the voting results, members please check your vote. Voting is closed. Display of voting results. 7 for, 30 against. I declare the motion negatived. Let's now deal with motion number 37, Mr. Gary Fan. Based on Rule 37A of FC procedure, I move that since the administration said that part of the residual electricity will be passed on to the electric grid, but then the administration didn't say how revenue would be generated and how it would be used to subsidize the recurrent expenditure of the plant. The subcommittee requests that the administration, in discussing with the power companies on how to send the electricity to the electricity grid, to ensure that the electricity companies will not be buying the residual electricity at a rate lower than the existing electric tariffs, to ensure that the government can, through the sale of residual electricity, subsidize the huge operating expenditure of the OWTF Phase 1. Voting begins. Before I declare the voting results, members please check your vote. Voting is closed. Display of voting results. 7 for, 30 against. I declare the motion negatived. Let's deal with motion number 38. Mr. Gary Fan. Based on 37A of FC procedure, I now move that since the administration said that they will collect organic waste and food waste from the linked waste management's properties and then send them to treatment at the WTF Phase 1. Many residents, people of Hong Kong, think that given the huge profit of the link should be shouldering the responsibility of setting up its own recycling networks. So the committee requests that the OWTF1, upon its commissioning, should not be collecting food waste and organic waste from the link's market, and should also encourage the link to build its own food waste and organic waste recycling system to make sure that the public funds will not be used to subsidize the profitable the link. Voting begins. Before I declare the voting results, please check your votes. Voting is closed. Display of voting results. 7 for, 30 against. I declare the motion negatived. Let's now deal with motion number 39. According to Rule 37A, I move that since the administration that using the BOT contract to operate the OWTF Phase 1, however, based on past experience, the administration has not been able to effectively manage those who have who have gained the contract, and then the companies can be allowed to profiteer using public funds or public facilities. So based on this, the committee that in awarding the contract and after the completion of the Phase 1 project, the government should directly manage OWTF Phase 1 to ensure that public funds are spent or used properly. Voting begins. Before I declare the voting results, members please check your vote. Voting is closed. Display of voting results. 7 for, 30 against. I declare the motion negatived. Motion number 40, Mr. Gary Fan. Based on Rule 37A FC procedure, I move that the committee that the administration in selecting the operator of OWTF Phase 1 must select a contractor who is willing to hire local workers to ensure that public funds can be used to create more local job opportunities. Voting begins. Before I declare the voting results, members, please check your vote. Voting is closed. Display of voting results. 7 for, 30 against, so I declare the motion negatived. If there are no further questions from members, I now put the proposal to a vote. For those who approve the proposal contained in FCR 2014-15-49, please raise your hands. A member claims division, and the division bell will ring for 5 minutes.
$1分鐘
1 minute.
正話嗰個都係同一個項目嘅議程，之前已經係喺個三。
Well, previously we have Mr. Yip Kwok Him moving that the division bell will ring for only 1 minute. So I think we are voting on the same item now. He moved that the time for ringing the division bell be shortened from 5 minutes to 1 minute. When you asked, I said that it has to do with Rule 47. I think it has to do with the same item. All right, voting begins. Before I declare the voting results, members, please check your vote. Voting is closed. Display of voting results. 37 for, 1 against. So I declare the proposal passed. Items 25 to 5, FCR 2014-15, 31A, to 34A. Now for items 2 to 5, i.e. 2014-50, 31A to 34A, these proposals are related to waste management facilities. The first one, 2014-15, 31A, seeks to invite the to the members' approval for upgrading of 164DR to Category A at an estimated cost of 2101.6 million for the extension of SENT. The second paper is 2014-15 32A, and that is members are invited to recommend to the Finance Committee the upgrading of 163DR to Category A at an estimated cost of 7510 million in money of the day prices for the extension of the Northeast New Territories landfill. The third paper, FCR bracket 2014-15 33A, members are invited to approve the upgrading of Part A, a part of 165DR, entitled West New Territories Landfill Extension, Consultants' Fees and Investigations to Category A at an estimated cost of 38 million in money of the day prices. And the retention of the remainder of 165DR in Category B. The fourth item, 2014-15 34A, this seeks to get members' approval to upgrade the 177DR to Category A at an estimated cost of $19203.7 million in money of the day prices for the design and construction of the Integrated Waste Management Facilities Phase 1. I suggest that we discuss these four papers all together at one go, and then we will vote on them separately. Mr. Albert Chan, in terms of the procedure, the three landfills, well, that's good reason to combine them, but then incinerator is altogether different. So I suggest that we divide them up into two portions because they require separate funding and they're of different nature. Mr. Kwok-Kaki, or Dr. Kwok-Kaki. Chairman, I think this is a major issue, no matter it's the three landfills or one incinerator. I hope that the committee has sufficient time to deal with them. I don't agree with your approach because I don't think it's helpful. We won't have sufficient time to ask our questions. For the three landfills, each of them carries its own problems and issues and warrant different treatment. With regard to voting, that can be done at one go, but then we shouldn't be discussing them or the projects in one lump or in one batch. Well, in the last legislative session, when we discussed these issues, there were many controversies, and we did discuss whether we should have a joint discussion or joint voting and so on and so forth. And I don't think it's appropriate to have a joint discussion of the four items or have the voting on all of them jointly. I think when we scrutinize the item, well, there are different considerations. Well, the expansion of the landfills can range from 30 hectares to some 200 hectares, so they can't be lumped together in our discussion. So please discuss them separately and vote on them separately. Dr. Kenneth Chan. Well, just on one item, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute. So when it gets to 1 minute, then it's very difficult for us to raise questions and get answers from the administration. So that's why we've been asking repeated questions. And when the members of the public watch what we're doing, they will get very frustrated too. So I hope, Chairman, you can split the four items up and then deal with them appropriately. Then we would have more room to have rational discussion and we can have a debate which will clarify the situation. Or else you will be forcing through the proposals in effect, and it won't do any good to you, yourself as a chairman, or the FC as a whole. Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Yu Siwing. It has to do with the environmental protection policy here in Hong Kong. If we discuss the projects one by one, then we will be losing sight of the whole picture. I think we can have a joint discussion, and then we can vote on each item separately. And by doing this, we can understand what the government's policy is in this area, apart from having 3 landfills expansion and 1 incinerator. And then I think we can have a clearer picture of what the government intends to do. If we discuss them one by one, then there will be many controversies, and we won't be able to understand what the government's overall plan in environmental protection is. Mr. Yip Kwok Him, I think your chairman, your arrangement is proper and right. And what we are dealing here with is waste treatment, including landfills and incineration. And we can have a joint discussion on these and vote on them separately. I think this is appropriate. When you come to the voting, and then you hold certain views, and you can exercise your voting right to express that. And I think if we can have a consolidated joint discussion of the projects, that will be good. Mr. Leung Kok Hong, I don't think your approach works. Tong Chi Wah, Donald Zhang, and C.Y. Leung are all CEs, but they are so very different. Their crimes are different in a way, or their sins. Now, while we are talking about 30 hectares in some project and 100 hectares in some project, I think C.Y. Leung is the best among the 3 because he is most outspoken and he makes us happy. Now, when you vote for the CE, you will be voting separately as well. For directly elected members like Michael Tan, he is from and New Territories East. If the government can give good explanations on why there is such a big landfill in NT East, then that would be good. Well, with all due respect, I must say that we have to end the meeting by 7:10 p.m. Mr. Chen Kam Lam, I see eye to eye with your arrangement, Chairman, because this issue of 3 landfills and 1 incinerator, the question has been discussed for 2 rounds, one at the relevant panel, and then also at the PWSC. We have lengthy deliberations on the subject, and even some members have raised a number of amendments to the proposals. So in the several rounds of discussions in the past, I think we had sufficient discussions on policy and other areas. So when the proposals get to the FC, we should concentrate on the financial arrangements and also the future development of the 3 landfills and 1 incinerator. We should not dwell on the policies anymore. But of course, I respect, Chairman, your decisions in arranging the speaking time. But then we should still be efficient in conducting the meeting. I agree with your arrangement. Mr. James Tian. Well, it's reasonable to ask questions at the FC. Mr. Chan Kalam is very right, because questions have been raised at the relevant panel meeting and also PWSE meeting. The Liberal Party has all along been against the extension of the 3 landfills, and we support the building of an incinerator. So it's no use prolonging the discussions here. So we have a joint discussion and then voting on the items separately. So after having heard, or rather, Dr. Fernando Zhang, I would like to say that we should deal with the proposals separately. We are talking about different landfills. They come with different geographical characteristics and different conditions. Let's say in terms of the expansion, size of the expansion and the population nearby, well, they differ from one to another. Now, talking about the incinerator, it involves it's some kind of technology, and it's impossible to deal with the incinerator together with the landfills. Well, there may be cases where members may support the incinerator, but then oppose the extension of the landfills. Others may have opposing views. So how can we deal with them in one go or in a joint discussion? I think we should have a separate discussion. Mr. Allen Lam, we have to end the meeting by 7:10 p.m. Now we have now 4 proposals, and members are worried that we have a joint discussion, then we might not have meaningful dialogue. Now, can I suggest that you go by your approach, and then there will be 4 rounds, each with 5 minutes. Then that would be the way to do it, I think. Well, some members here on the food waste problem, they are asking questions for the 11th round. I have made a decision that we should have a joint discussion. And for Rule 37A and the items, the 37A will be dealt with separately from the voting. I've heard what members said. So next week, when we start the discussion on the 3 landfills and incinerator, then I will let you know how I'll be arranging for the speaking time of members. I hope that members can be succinct and should not dwell too much on the policies. And I hope that
we can also deal with other issues involving civil service pay rise and so on. So thank you very much for coming, and I'd like to thank you for your cooperation today. Meeting is now adjourned.